DreAllDay.com. You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all that, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one show. We got a book on the subject. We got several books. We got one book with a specific name. And all of this is all under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, white people ain't our business. Now this message is targeted specifically to people of color, specifically to black people, black Americans. Let's be clear who this is specifically targeted to, because I do an episode like this type of episode. I do this around once a year, just so I can make sure I get my thoughts on paper, just to make sure everybody knows exactly where I stand on these things. I've done several episodes like this in the past, and let me just refer you to a few of them. I did a few of them last year because there was a lot going on last year, 2020, in the summer of social justice. That was episode 1630. I told you how the white social justice warriors are actually sending black people backwards. Episode number 1624, the biggest challenges facing black America. This one I'm gonna talk about today is one of those challenges. Episode 1533, how to combat, quote, white privilege, close quote, strategically when you're a black American. And then the last time I had talked about it before, it had been years, in episode 411, black people, media, and the, quote, help that hurts. In episode 342, a message to all black people. So I hadn't talked about it for a while until the summer of social justice. And now we got all this stuff coming up on this subject. And my personal, when it comes to the topics that I talk about here at Work on Your Game, as I said, we always bring it back to the self. And my focus is not really on specifically race or specifically politics, but if this is a thing that's on people's minds and is a thing I see people talking about, and is a thing where I see people being misled, or a thing where I see people throwing ideas out there that are actually going to send people in the wrong direction, then it is my responsibility to step up and speak up on the subject. So just lately, I've seen several topics where people have found ways, and they've been very creative ways. I got to give them credit for their creativity. Just creative ways of saying, well, any problem that is facing any person of color, they have found a way to turn it into, well, it has something to do with racism, it has something to do with white supremacy, it has something to do with the system, it has something to do with something unfair that has been done unto you that has led either you to not doing what you need to do for yourself or doing something that is actually sending you backwards. But it's all based on the way that white people / the system / racism / unfairness has worked against you. The counterintuitive message that I'm going to give you here today is that if you are a black American, white people are not your business. White people are not your problem. And I'm going to lay out exactly why that is here today. Now, as I said, I usually do this once a year. Last year, from the summer on, was an exception because there was so much going on for this to be talked about. And I guess this year is already an exception because I already did a 4-part series on the anti-racism argument made by the book on anti-racism, which was episodes 1788 through 1791, just a few weeks ago. And we talked about many other things around this very topic. Just recently, 1797, I gave you my general thoughts on racism. When someone had asked me, I remember I was in a clubhouse room, and somebody asked me, is there more racism going on now than there was back in the day? That was episode 1731. I addressed that. So I guess this year is already an exception, and hopefully, this is what I hope. I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm going to put this out into the universe anyway. Hopefully, this becomes less of a subject moving forward, not specifically from me, but just less of a subject, period, just in culture, period, where we don't have so many people talking about, well, race this and race that, and this is the reason why something's, and everything is not being pushed back to the topic of race. I'm finding that's happening so much that people are really starting to buy into it. And something that I heard Thomas Sowell say, who I mentioned a couple days ago in the Favorite Books episode, he said, because someone asked him in one of the interviews he was doing, they were saying, well, if these things are untrue, Mr. Sowell, why do so many people believe them? Because he was debunking certain myths, especially around race And someone asked him, well, if they're so untrue, why do so many people believe? Why are they such widespread, beliefs by so many people, being that they're incorrect? He said, well, listen, if something that is not true gets repeated enough times, then eventually people just start to accept it as if it is true. And this is one of the reasons why I feel compelled every now and then to speak on these topics and just lay out my perspective and where I'm seeing things and how I like to explain things. Remembering that the North Star of what we do here at Work on Your Game is that we always want to bring it back to ourselves. Because the problem with blaming things on someone other than yourself, whether that's an individual person, whether it's a group, whether it's an entity, whether it's the government, whether it's a system, whether it's something that you can't quite put your finger on, but you know is not you. The problem with that, and this will always be the problem with it, is that you can't control other entities outside of yourself. 99% of life you can't control. You can only control what you do. So if your problem is based on what somebody else is doing or not doing, well, how can you ever solve that? What if they decide they don't want to change? What if they tell you they're going to change, but then they actually don't? What if they change, but they change in a way that doesn't actually help you any more than it was helping you before? What if they change and it actually makes things worse for you? What are you going to do? This is a question this is not a rhetorical question. Or this is a question that you actually would have to answer if your perspective is my problems or my issues or my lack of progress is based on what fill in the blank, anybody other than yourself, is doing or not doing. So this is a serious question that does need to be addressed. Unfortunately, not enough people are looking to address it. And those who are addressing it, like what I'm going to be talking about here today, these messages don't get amplified, because the problem with a message like what I'm giving you here today is that it disempowers all the people whose very business is based around, hey, let me tell you why your problems are not yours. Let me tell you why your problems are because you're black. Let me tell you why your problems are because you're Asian. Let me tell you why your problem is because you are female. Let me tell you why your problem is because you're lesbian or gay or transgender. These people are hustlers, all right? This is their hustle. Their hustle is keeping you believing that your problems are not because of you. 100%, not even 100%, but your problems are not because of you. Your problems are because of something that needs to be fixed outside of yourself. And as long as they keep you thinking that, you're going to keep paying attention to them, which means you're going to keep buying from them. They're going to continue to be relevant and known out there in the world, and they can continue selling books, getting speaking gigs, getting consultation contracts, and giving speeches at colleges, and getting hired to give workshops at organizations who feel like they need to make sure everybody's being anti-racist and make sure people aren't being, prejudiced against other people in different groups. This is all a hustle here. I want y'all to understand this is all a game. And listen, it's not even that I don't even want to say that I'm not against the game. I don't agree with the game, but I can't be mad at the game, because there are people who get told what I just told you and they keep playing the game anyway. One reason is because they're afraid. They don't want to be the one who gets canceled. Another reason is because they got 30 people around them who agree with the hustle, and they agree with this thing. They don't see it as a hustle. They see it as this moral, just thing, and they don't have the disagreeableness within them to stand up against that group. And if they did, they know what's going to happen. They're probably going to end up out of the group. They'll end up out of a job, and they don't want to have to be able to, they don't want to have to be forced to have to do things on their own. So this whole hustle kind of perpetuates itself. So maybe we're going to need more episodes talking about these topics this year, pending some outcomes that we are all watching right now, and you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll know, because there will be another episode on it as soon as it happens. I'm 99% sure I'm going to be talking about it, but you'll see when it happens. So anyway, let's get into our points here today. And before we do, let me remind you, I do have a text line where I want you to text me and tell me the most valuable insight you got here today, or the thing you most vehemently disagree with that I talk about here today, or anything in between. My number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. Text me and tell me what you got from this episode that most sticks in your mind. And the topic, once again, white people ain't our business. Number one, the blackest thing to do these days. And when I say blackest, I'm using that in quotation. I'm using air quotes here. Blackest, quote unquote. Thing you could do that most proves your blackness these days is to blame white people, white privilege, white supremacy for whatever problem exists in your life and or the larger black community. And I say this sarcastically. This is the blackest thing that you could be doing right now. If it's not white people's problem, here's the thing. You get two black people standing on the stage in front of an audience of black Americans, and one of them says, you know what, the biggest issue in the black community is how we are dealing with each other, what we're teaching each other, and the things that we are just not taking personal responsibility for. That person gives their speech, they get 5 minutes. And the other person comes up and says, the biggest problems in the black community right now are what white people are doing to us, their inherent racism, the white privilege that is giving them opportunities that we don't have, and the white supremacy that is trying to keep us down and take us back to the Jim Crow days. Which speech? Now, you don't know who the audience is, but let's just say, just black Americans, just a sample of black Americans, taken at random. Which speech is going to get a larger round of applause? Which speaker is more likely to get shouted down and booed off the stage? Which speaker is likely to get a book deal from a white person based on what they gave in that speech? We all know the answer to each of those questions, do we not? The blackest thing to do today is your problems are not your problems. And this is something that I actually talked about when I talk about marketing. And this is a bigger conversation here. That in the marketing world, and follow what I'm saying here, when you are selling something, one of the smartest things you can do when you sell a product or a service is tell your prospect, your customer, that the problems that they've had in the past are not because of them. Their problems are because they got the wrong information, somebody taught them wrong, that somebody or something outside of themselves messed up. They just didn't do it. They just didn't have the right information. Whatever the way you want to word it, it's not your fault. If you want to sell something to somebody, you never tell them that the reason that you didn't get the outcome that you needed is because of you. Because if you tell somebody that, now you're giving them personal responsibility, and personal responsibility does not sell. Yes, you heard me correctly. If you want to sell, if I wanted to sell you, let's say if I was selling, what do I want to sell? Let's say I wanted to sell you a workout program. I want to sell you a workout program for you to lose 30 pounds. Now, if you're looking at a workout program that can help you lose 30 pounds, I'm going to assume, I think it's safe to assume, this ain't the first workout program you've looked at, and it's probably not the first one you tried. You tried to lose 30 pounds before, and it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, it didn't work because you didn't follow the fucking diet program, because you didn't go to the goddamn gym, because you didn't do the work, you were not disciplined, you kept eating ice cream and potato chips, and you actually gained weight instead of losing weight. We know that's why it didn't work. Everybody who understands basic science and health knows that any person who tried, quote unquote, tried a workout program or a weight loss program and it didn't work is because you didn't do the damn work. We all know this. We all inherently know this as true. Some of you are listening to this right now, and I'm talking about you, and you know it's true. But if I'm trying to sell you a weight loss program, that would be the dumbest thing for me to say to you. Yes, you heard, that'd be the dumbest thing for me to say to you, because as soon as I say that to you, now I'm holding a mirror up to you and telling you why you are the problem, not the program, not the trainer, not the workout gear, not the number of repetitions in the exercises. Those aren't the problem, you're the problem. And if you were to accept that as true, then guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to buy my program because you know that the program is not the problem, you're the problem. But if I'm trying to sell you a program and make money, it would be dumb of me to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you, oh no, the problem is not you. The problem is you just had the wrong workout program. You had the wrong trainer. You got the wrong sneakers. You went to the wrong gym. They gave you the wrong number of workout sessions. You had the wrong waist trainer on. You know what? You were listening to the wrong music. If you just do this my way, you could be the same person. You don't need to change at all. All you need to do is buy my program for $300. Then all of a sudden things will be good. And I want y'all to understand that even though that sounds kind of silly and ridiculous what I'm saying to you right now, this is how people sell you stuff every fucking day. This is how they sell you things. They don't tell you the truth that you are the common denominator in all your failures, because they told you that and you accepted it as true, then you would know that you don't need a program to fix things. You need to fix yourself. And if you didn't believe it, it's like if I told you, or the reason that you didn't lose weight before is because you didn't do the damn work, and you didn't agree with that, and you didn't like me for saying it, well, guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to buy my program. So that doesn't sell. So in life, if you tell people that they're the reason that they have failed in the past, they will not buy from you. No matter whether they agree with you or disagree with you, either way you lose. But if you tell people that the reason that they are coming up short is because of someone or something else, and you are the one who can solve it, then you get you can build a following. You can build a cult following and a movement behind that. And as a hint, by the way, this is how every political campaign is run. Your problems are not your problems. Let me solve your problems. Let me help you. All you got to do is elect me, and then we'll fix things. Every political candidate does this. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, they all do it. And you find one who doesn't do it, I'll show you. You show me a political candidate who does not do this. I'll show you a political candidate who did not win their election. Facts. I'm telling you all that to tell you this. The hustle these days is the same thing that I just explained to you. This is just a marketing thing. And this is not new. This is not something that just started in 2021. Didn't start in 2020. It started before any of us were alive. This has been going on. This is just simple marketing. This is simple sales. This is simple copywriting. The thing is now, instead of it being about weight loss or mental toughness or selling your products on the internet, now the hustle is just around the concept of race. And the reason why this is such a great hustle is because everybody has a race and everybody has an opinion on race. Whereas weight loss, not everyone has an opinion or a need to talk about weight loss. That's a niche topic. Playing basketball is a niche topic. Mindset even is a niche topic. Not everybody feels like they need to really focus on mindset, even though everybody has a mindset. But race, everybody has something to say. So this is a great hustle. It's a sweet hustle for those of you who may be in this hustle. Listen, don't be mad at me for airing out your hustle. Right? This is something that don't be mad at me. I'm just telling the game as it is. You know the name of the show, don't you? The blackest thing to do these days. Again, we're still on point number 1 here. The topic: white people ain't our business. The blackest thing to do is to blame white something on every black problem. Because if you just say black people, the reason why this thing ain't working because we need to do something, but now you're giving people personal responsibility. Personal responsibility does not sell. It does not go viral. It never has and it never will. Okay? Being a victim is the new power these days. And this is not necessarily new in terms of the way that people think, but in terms of monetizing it and making a business out of it, that's the new part. That's the part that didn't exist 20 years ago, didn't exist even 10 years ago, but nowadays is popping right now. All right, so if you want to jump into this game, you better jump on a wave right now with your surfboard and ride this wave out. Who knows how long it's going to go. Social justice, equality, anti-racism, Black Lives Matter, all of these are targeting white people. These are not about black folks. I told you this in the anti-racism series. Anytime you see a black person talking about these topics, they are not talking to black people. Even if their audience is all black, they are saying these things because it's going to get the attention. The intended target is the attention of white people, because the white people are the ones who will hire you to come give a workshop at their company, to write a book, to come give a speech at a conference. Black people don't give a conference. Black people don't give speeches to other black people about not being racist. All right, they give speeches to white people about it. This all is angled towards white people. Okay, all of this shit. And again, this is just the hustle. I'm not mad at it. I'm just recognizing the hustle for what it is. This is not a wave that can be stopped. All right, any of you ever go to the beach and you see a big wave coming? Can you physically stop a wave? No, the wave is going to be the wave. Now, you can either get wet or you get the hell out of the way. Or you can point out the wave, and this is what I'm doing here today. I'm just recognizing the wave for what the wave is. And there's a bigger picture that we get into here. We're still on the first point. All of this being said, none of the things that get talked about here today, and I don't mean here today in this episode, but here in the world around these concepts of social justice, equality, anti-racism, whatever Black Lives Matter is talking about, whoever Black Lives Matter is, now nobody wants to own it anymore. It's all targeting white people. None of these are targeted at getting black people to do anything except protest and demonstrate. It's not targeted towards getting black people to do anything to change themselves. It's all based on what white people need to do. And the reason why, as I just explained, there's money to be made, there's attention to be gained, and there's power to be accrued from that money and attention. Now, again, I'm not knocking their hustle, but you should know when a hustle is happening. Why should you know when a hustle is happening? Because if you can't ID the sucker at the poker table, you are the sucker at the table. That if you want to get hustled and you know you're getting hustled, then it's all good. Like if you're hustling me and I know you're hustling me, then I'll say, all right, I know exactly what you're doing, but I like it. I like the fact that you're hustling me, so we're good. Now, if I don't know that you're hustling me, and then I find out after the hustle was over that I got hustled, now I'm not gonna feel too good about that. So the reason I'm pointing it out to you is because I just want you to know what's going on. I'm not trying to stop it. I couldn't stop it even if I wanted to. You just need to know what the game is. Again, this show is called Work on Your Game. So we point out the game from all angles here. Whether I agree with it, I disagree with it, whether I'm involved in it, whether I'm staying out of it, whatever. Whether I was involved, not involved anymore, thinking about getting involved, or I'm all the way in, I'm gonna point out the game as it is. Now, you could do whatever you wanna do with this information. I just wanna make sure you know that the hustle is going on. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is white people ain't our business. If you tell a black person, or a or black people in general, or you just have a message about black people doing for self, as I did in episode 1621, the very topic was how to do for self. It wasn't specifically saying black people do for self, but for anybody, you tell people to do for self, to stop paying so much attention. Let's say black folks. Stop paying so much attention to white people, whether what you think they're thinking, whether you think they're racist, whether you think they have privileges that you don't have, whatever it is you've been thinking about white people. Just stop paying attention to them and their actions or your assumed thoughts of what they're thinking, and all of a sudden you become the enemy. If I walk into a room of black people, let's say there are 500 people in the room, they give me the mic, I'm on the stage, and I say, our number one thing black people need to do is do for self and stop paying so much attention to white people and what they're doing. All of a sudden, I'm the enemy in the minds of many people in that room. Maybe not everybody, but some people in that room are going to really not like the fact that I even made that statement. And I only even if I say nothing else, no context, that's all I said, people are not going to like me just for saying that. Why? Because they are engaged. They are invested in this very concept of white people are the issue for black people. And this is, I mean, again, just with the way that I think, just so ridiculous that your main focus, whoever this may be, your main focus is someone who's not you, a group that you're not a part of, and what they're either thinking, doing, or having that has nothing to do with you, probably has nothing to do with you, but your focus is them. How much time are they spending focusing on you? That's a question that you should ask yourself, and you should really think about until you come up with an answer. It shouldn't take you long to come up with an answer. Let me help you out with the answer. The answer is 0. They're spending no time thinking about you, but all your focus is on them. Now, so that makes 2 people focused on you. 2 people focused on them, rather, and nobody focused on you. That's a bad equation. That's bad algebra. You are, or let me say, I would be, if I got on stage and gave that speech that I just proposed to you all, I would be the one who's victim blaming. I'm victim blaming the black people. There are black people out here who feel like they're victims. Nothing actually happened to them, but they feel like they're victims just by the very act of being black. And I'm telling you this, the things that I'm saying to you here today, everybody, these are not theories. All right? These are things that I have people, human beings, who have said these things to me. I remember I put an episode out last summer that it wasn't an episode. Actually, it was an episode of this show, but I did it also as a live stream, not the recording as a live stream, but I did a live stream on Instagram last June. And the title was, We Are Not Victims. And I took the same points that I used in that live stream, and I did a podcast episode called We Are Not Victims. And let me tell you what episode that was so you can go listen to it yourself. This video was actually episode 1524. So I put the video on YouTube, and then I did a podcast episode. I recorded these separately, and I put it on this feed for the show. You can listen to episode 1524. The links are down below in the show notes of this episode. When I put the video on YouTube, and we know that YouTube has a comments section, whereas podcasts do not, let's just stay that way. There were people leaving comments on that video. There was one specific person I remember. He said something like, paraphrasing, well, Dre, you're wrong because we are victims. And he started laying out all the reasons why he and I'm assuming this guy was black, why he and I are victims in America. And he had all his reasons why I need to change my approach and believe that I'm a victim in America by the fact that I'm black. That seems crazy to me. It still seems crazy to me. But if I was to tell a black person, well, listen, the reason why black people as a whole are in whatever situation is black people need to do something. Regardless of what the situation is, we need to do something because that's the only thing we can control. Somebody would accuse me of victim blaming. Oh, you're blaming the victim for being victimized. And these are, again, they're people I know personally who have never had anything happen to them. Nothing like seriously tangible at the hands of a white person or the hands of racism or whatever. And they argue that they are a victim. And I mean, these are people who have said this to me they've actually spoken these words to me to my face. And it just seems, not even seems, but is still ridiculous to me even when I think about it. Or I would be racist for, wait, what am I saying here? I would either be victim blaming or I'm racist for saying this. I'm racist towards my own race for saying this. And then I'm off the team, where some of the lower level black folks say something like that. Well, we're going to trade this black person for a white person, whatever. All of this is crazy to me. It wasn't that long ago This is a time that I remember, and I'm not that old, when our communities and the leaders in our communities, real leaders in our communities, would always talk about what we need to do for ourselves. There was a time, not too long ago, when people in our communities, black communities, would point out the individuals in our communities who stood on the corners of our neighborhoods, who sold drugs to our friends and family members, or who otherwise misrepresented our community. They were the enemy, and they would be actively opposed by their own people to clean their shit up. There were people who would say, look, these guys who are standing on the corner need to stop standing on that corner because y'all making our community look bad. These guys who are dealing drugs, you can't deal drugs in this neighborhood. You can't deal drugs on this block. These people who are throwing trash on the ground instead of putting it in the trash can, that's not gonna be tolerated around here. So y'all gonna fix that. And any of these individuals who were making the community look bad, bringing the community down, they were driven out of the community or they were forced to change. You had to do one or the other, but they were not tolerated. They were not accepted. It wasn't that long ago. Again, I ain't that old. I remember these things. Now what happened? Even back in those times, there were movies, there were TV shows, there was music that espoused this mentality. Again, those of you who are 30, over the age of 30, maybe you remember this stuff. Part of our media, our popular culture stuff talked about these things. Like, we don't tolerate these kind of individuals. We don't allow this to perpetuate. And if it does pop up, we get rid of it. Where is all that now? It's gone. The way to be popular now is to point out some deficiency or some form of victimhood for black people and label it racist, whereas it wasn't but 25 years ago where the main thing black people were pointing out is, hey, here's what we need to do for ourselves. Here's what we need to do to empower ourselves and make ourselves better. The focus wasn't on an outside group. The focus was on the inside group, the inside out approach rather than an outside in approach. I read an article the other day that someone wrote that they were talking about the NBA's dress code from back that got enacted back in, this is probably around the early to mid 2000s. The NBA enacted a dress code because the players were coming to the games and sitting on the benches wearing these oversized 6X jerseys and jeans and do-rags and fitted hats and bandanas and all this stuff. And I used to dress like that too, in full disclosure, but it did look kind of sloppy. Looking back on it, it did look kind of sloppy. It didn't look, I wouldn't put that in the category of professional clothing the way it was then. So the NBA enacted this dress code, and nowadays you can see how the players dress. I mean, the dress code has kind of gotten morphed in such a way. Now the players are kind of like fashion icons, at least some of them are these days. But anyway, I'm reading this article that this guy's looking back on that dress code when it got enacted, and he labels it racist. He said, oh, the dress code that got enacted in the mid 2000s was racist because apparently it was targeted towards black people. When it could also be called, just as easily, that same dress code could be called professionalism, because there are black people who looked at the dress code and said, you know what is right? People do need to dress a little bit more professional going to the games. You look at somebody like Michael Jordan, even in the 90s, way before there was a dress code in the NBA, you never saw Michael Jordan come into a game looking like how players were looking in the early 2000s. You never did. Michael Jordan had on a suit most of the time, going to the game and coming from the game way before there was a dress code. And by the way, Michael Jordan made more money in advertising than any player ever. He's made more money in advertising than any athlete ever. And he was out way before these guys. Nowadays, I mean, when you go to not even nowadays, but just look at life period. When you go to a wedding or a funeral, or you have a job at an office, what do you wear? I mean, is that racist? Is it racist to wear a suit to a wedding? Is it racist that you need to put a suit on to go to a funeral? Is it racist that you have to wear business casual clothing when you work in an office building? But it's racist when the NBA told the players that they should put on, clean up your dress a little bit when you come into the arena because, I mean, after all, we are paying you. And, I mean, you do work for whoever, whatever team you play for. But now this person is looking back and labeling it racist. And the thing about the article is that it got published in some local publication, but the publication okayed this. I mean, there are editors, there are teams of editors who go through these articles before they get put out. Somebody had to okay this point of view, this angle, and said, oh, well, the dress code was racist, so let's talk about it. All right, somebody had to okay that. And this is where we are right now. And there's a black guy who wrote the article, but I'm pretty sure the editors of that article, the editors of that publication who put it out were probably not black. And this is the part that perplexes me. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic is white people ain't our business. What you focus on, you create. What you focus on, you create. When your focus is all around white people, what they do, what they have, what you think they're thinking, the more you focus on it, the more power it has over you. When you fear something, you create it. Why? Because you're focused on it. When you hate something, you perpetuate it. Why? Because you're focused on it. To hate something, you have to focus on it. When you complain about something, what happens? You get more things to complain about because you're focused on complaining. You know what hard work is? Or you know what is hard work, better stated? It's hard work to look in the mirror and focus on what's there and then do the work to alter, edit, upgrade, change what you see. And that's the reason why most people don't do it. It's the reason why in the black community right now, the quote unquote leaders, and they're not actual leaders, but they're looked at as leaders, they're labeled leaders. The leaders are getting more and more black people to focus on externalities, things that have nothing to do with the self, nothing to do with looking in the mirror, nothing to do with what the black community needs to do, or nothing to do with what the individual even needs to do, but more about how racism and white people somehow, some way are the main cause of each individual person's situation or each community's situation. This is what the leaders have pushed people to do. And this is why things are going backwards. If it was just a bunch of followers doing this, then we'd be able to fix it pretty quickly. And leaders would just come in and speak up, people would listen. But the people who are being labeled leaders, and again, they're not actual leaders, but they're being labeled leaders, they're coming in and doing this. And the reason that they're doing it, because there's plenty to be gained from telling other black people that your problems are not your problems. This is marketing. All right, this is the way marketing works. And I've told you before that the way that you market and sell your products is the exact opposite way that you should talk to yourself. So when you're talking to a person and you're trying to sell them your product, you should tell them that every problem that they have is not their fault. And if they just get your solution and pay for it, you will help solve their problem. That's the way you will sell more products. So if you want to sell more products, tell everybody that their problems are not their fault. But when you're looking in the mirror, you need to tell yourself that your problems are your fault. So this is the dichotomy of how you sell things in life. And I'm gonna do a whole episode just on that topic right there. So I'm not even gonna talk about it anymore. I'm gonna give a whole topic just to that right there. But as I said, it's hard work to look in the mirror and focus on what's there and doing the work. And that's why most people don't do the work. But real results in life come from doing the work. So what real results? Let me ask this question. Because some of you who are listening to me right now, you agree 100% with everything that I've said. Some of you are listening to me, you don't agree with anything that I've said. So let me ask the question. Summer of social justice and where we are now, it's been about a year. What results have been produced? What positive outcomes have been produced for people of color, for black people, from last May when George Floyd's death went viral to now? What positive results have been produced? We've had a bunch of race hustlers pop up. We had a bunch of speeches made, a bunch of hashtags come out, a bunch of content and posts go viral, a bunch of people get canceled. We had an election, a whole lot of things occurred. Tell me what tangible positive results have occurred. Something tangible that we can point to and say, all right, you know what? That is an advancement for black people that has happened based on this focus on white people, white privilege, racism, and whatever else, or whatever other things you want to label white people with doing against you that makes you a victim. What has been produced? What outcomes? Can anybody tell me one? Just one positive, tangible outcome. So the election, I don't even consider that a tangible outcome. What did it actually do for you? Did it do anything for you? Maybe it made you happy, but is that a tangible? I'm talking about a tangible outcome. Something that we can say, all right, yeah, that's the thing that occurred. That was pretty good. That's a good advance for us based on this focus. I can't think of any. I think for some people, They sold some books. I think some people have landed a bunch of consulting contracts. I think some people have become much more famous than they were before or otherwise would be based on actual substance. I think those things have occurred. So for some individuals, yes. But for the community as a whole, this focus has produced what results? And I want you to text me. I want you to just send me a text and tell me what results there are, if you could think of any, because I can't think of any. Let's recap today's class, which is white people ain't our business. This is a message specifically to Black Americans. I do one of these, used to do them around once a year to get my thoughts on paper, but in the last year or so, we've had to talk about this a lot, and we will talk about this again, by the way. Point number one, the blackest thing to do these days, this is all sarcastic, is to blame white people, white privilege, white supremacy for whatever problem. Being a victim is the new power, or I'm out of sarcasm now. Social justice, equality, anti-racism, BLM, all these things are targeting white people. None of these are targeting at getting Black people's attention or getting Black people to do anything. They're targeted in indoctrinating Black people with thinking that all of their issues are based on white people, and that's it. Now white people need to do something, and here's the great thing for the race hustlers, that white people are actually doing something because they're afraid of being the next one to get canceled. If you can't, I want you to remember something, that all of this is a hustle, everybody. And if you cannot identify the sucker at the table, you are the sucker. So at least, if you're getting hustled, at least know that you're getting hustled. All right, don't be the fool at the table. Point number two, if you tell Black people to do for self, like I did in episode 1621, to stop paying attention to white people and their deeds or your assumed thoughts in their minds, some people look at you as an enemy. You're victim blaming, or you're racist of your own kind to even be saying this. And now they got to replace you with somebody else. It wasn't that long ago when people who stood on the corner, people who sold drugs, people who perpetuated any type of image of Black Americans that made Black Americans look bad or less than our best, those people were pushed out of the community. They were forced to change or else. Well, nowadays, we celebrate those people. Nowadays, nobody's doing that because the focus is not really about what anybody in our community is doing. It's about what people on the outside are doing to force our communities to be what they are. Whereas we have no personal agency. We have no ownership. We are not responsible for any of our own outcomes. And this has just been accepted as the norm. This has to be what it is. Somebody said the NBA's dress code from 15 years ago was racist to even be enacted in the first place. Well, listen, people wear the same kind of clothes that the NBA told NBA players to wear to work. People wear those clothes to weddings, funerals, and office jobs. Are those racist too? Nobody asked this question. Point number three, when you focus on, you create. When the focus is all about, if you're Black and your focus is on what white people do, what they have, what you think they're thinking, they have more power over you, even though they're not thinking about you at all. They're living rent-free in your mind, and they're not even thinking about you at all. But everything you do or everything you don't do or don't have must be because of something they did or didn't do for you. When you fear something, when you hate something, when you complain about something, all you do is perpetuate them because you must focus on them in order to bring them to even be thinking about them in the first place. The hard work is looking in the mirror and focusing on what's there so you can do the work, which is why most people don't do the hard work. But real results only come from real work. So who's willing to do the work? It's a rhetorical question. Answer with your actions, not with your words. All that said, send me a text. Tell me those valuable insight you got from today's episode, or if you disagree with something I said today, if you disagree with everything I said today, send me a text, 305-384-6894, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.